and welcome to another edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by GeneralsJoes.com, with me as your host, Chris Whizz on McLeod. I'm going to have to beat all of that, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me now to discuss the news that Wizkids has... I can't say it now without laughing.
We're going to just call you R. Kelly.
Chris R. Kelly McLeod. Wizkids has announced an enhanced licensing deal with partner Hasbro. Is Justin Belly the Whiz Bell. That would only make sense to people that know who Billy the Whiz is. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this news burst. Earlier today, Wizkids, a subsidiary of NECA and a company responsible for HeroClix, Dice Masters and Attack Wing, announced an enhanced licensing deal with their partner Hasbro. This means we can expect to see both painted and unpainted miniatures from brands such as Transformers, My Little Pony, and more importantly for us, G.I. Joe later this year. President of Wizkids, Justin Ziran, had this to say: "Much of the Wizkids team has grown up with these cherished brands and are thrilled to be bringing them to life with the high-definition sculpting processes that our customers have come to love." Interestingly, in the report from Action Figure Insider, it was mentioned that My Little Pony and Transformers products will be available throughout North America, but no direct mention of G.I. Joe, even though it was brought up earlier in the same article as a brand that will be featured. Don't worry though, the Wizkids Facebook page has also posted about the news of the new deal and have promoted the fact that all of those mentioned brands will be getting the miniature treatment. So Justin, what do you think about this news in general?
I think it's really cool, personally. I mean, there was a short window of time, but there was a short window of time that I actually collected HeroClix a little bit and thought they were kind of neat. And that could be a really neat format for G.I. Joe, and along the same lines, there was also a short moment of time where I collected miniatures and did some miniature painting and things, which was, stuff I had a lot of fun with. It wasn't a hobby that lasted a real long time, but I think both of those are kind of neat ideas to get the brand out there. I do think it's funny that there can be no announcement of G.I. Joe without some level of controversy involved. So, of course, they forget to mention G.I. Joe as one of the brands that is actually going to get the miniature treatment, but
cancelled mid press release was a really funny thing I saw.
But it's hilarious. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I mean, I think it'd be awesome if they did add some kind of game element. I think HeroClix actually has a game involved with it, so it'd be kind of neat if they did something like that too. But I think it's neat. It's not going to compete directly with their action figure line. It would be nice, of course, to have an action figure line, but I think this is kind of a neat deviation of that and could prove to be provide some pretty awesome collectibles, I think, for people. So
yeah, I mean, I'm a big gamer, I suppose. Well, not a big gamer. We do it kind of quite often, like maybe like once or twice a month. We my wife and I tend to join in with some friends in some kind of gaming activity stuff, and like this, I think, would be like a really cool thing.
I think you're getting a little personal there, Chris. I don't know if Kate would appreciate you revealing that information.
There's a lot more I won't reveal. But yeah, that's completely taken me off. I don't know what I was talking about now.
Sorry.
Now all I can think about is the disgusting things we get up. No, I'm kidding. No, so I think the G.I. Joe add that into the mix, and I think that's a really cool idea. I'm also kind of hoping they do some sort of vehicle kind of game with the G.I. Joe line. Much like the Star Wars miniature game where you got all the vehicles and all that kind of stuff. So I think that kind of gaming thing where you have like battles and you have maybe like a board and everything, but or something you could just play wherever with kind of some specific rules would just be a really cool little thing for G.I. Joe to kind of have. Something they haven't really explored at all other than trading card stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they have done the trading card stuff, and they did those like little G.I. Joe minis, but they weren't really affiliated with any sort of gaming platform or anything. But yeah, I hear it a lot, or I've heard it a lot kind of throughout the years, is how neat would it be if G.I. Joe had some kind of, either RPG style or some kind of game like that. And I agree. I think it would be pretty cool. There's so many characters and so many different adventures you could kind of coordinate with the G.I. Joe cast of characters. I think it's an untapped resource, but it's one of those things that you'd really like to see them go all in on. And you can't help but wonder, if anything would kind of be, a half-hearted attempt. I'd really like Wizkids kind of take the ball and really roll with it. I'm a little, not really afraid, but just if they've struck all these deals with, Transformers and My Little Pony and G.I. Joe, I'm not necessarily sure G.I. Joe will get top billing among those 3 properties for getting the most attention paid to it.
Yeah.
I mean, after all, they forgot to even mention them in the in the list of brands. But it's so I'm not sure how devoted they would be to really fleshing out a cool game. But I do think there's some potential for some really cool stuff there.
Well, I really can't wait to see what this turns out to be. I think either vehicle or character, or even both, would be a really cool way of implementing those characters into this world. And I think there was something so amazing about those miniature the minifigures and the mini vehicles that would come with some of the 80s figures.
Yeah,
there was something about those that again, really collectible high. I mean, Micro Machines as well springs to mind, and the G.I. Joe Micro Machine kind of crossover that has happened in the past as well. But there's something about very miniature collectible items that just appeals to me so directly, even if it's blind bagged, or if it's stuff you can actually see what you're getting. I just love that kind of aspect of things. I love the figures like the Dino Riders and Mask, and I love the Micro Machines. I loved all of that. I loved all of those things. So this is something that's kind of calling out to me. It's going like, if this does happen, then you're going to be in deep.
Yeah, and I can't help but being reminded there was a comic strip I saw somewhere that was actually referencing the Star Wars kind of miniature vehicle games, and there was some older husband sitting on the floor with his kid, flying a little miniature X-wing around, saying something like, "Oh yeah, this is the first set of the booster packs or whatever," and his wife says, "Oh, booster packs, it sounds dangerously like there's more of these," and he's like, "Oh no, I'm just gonna get a couple and we'll be fine." And then like the next frame has him literally buried in miniature Star Wars vehicles, and it just says mistakes were made or something like that. It's just that's immediately what I'm thinking of. I'd find a vamp in a store and be like, "Oh, that's cool. I'll just get the vamp," and then next thing I know, my recently cleaned basement will be a disaster area of miniature G.I. Joe vehicles.
Oh, but this again, like, I think they could do some really good stuff with this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The other thing that kind of jumped out of my head with the micro figures that we got in recent years, like in 2010, 2011, 2012. Where we had those little micro figures, I thought they were really cool, and I collected all of them aggressively.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I had to get every single one. And was just thinking I'm in the UK at the time, so I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to get these easily. Thankfully, I think Dave Tree, actually, All the Cool Stuff, I think he sorted me out for a bunch of the sets, because they came in packs that of kind of carded packs as well, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I went crazy on those. I mean, they were. I look at them now and they're like little ridiculous pieces of rubber that are they're fine, but they're not amazing. But I don't even know how much money I spent. I had so many doubles in order to get my full set, and I did end up getting a full set. But I just, every time I saw them in the store, I bought 3 packs for really no reason besides the fact that I'm an OCD G.I. Joe fan.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? When you get these little things that are kind of reasonably priced. I mean,
exactly.
I didn't do this necessarily with the Loyal Subjects. I remember getting a case. And then thinking, God, that was expensive for what it was.
Exactly.
You're just talking about vinyl figures at $12-13 a pop, and you kind of think that is, when you don't know what you're getting and it could be something you already have, there's something very off-putting about that price point, which I think is why you're not seeing Loyal Subjects with the license at the moment, or I'm guessing they've lost it now, and you're not seeing Whatnot Toys bringing their stuff out. So I kind of feel like there's a reason, but with those little micro figs, you did probably drop a lot of money on them, but it's way more acceptable if you're just getting the pack, or one of them in a blind bag, because you can deal with that price point a little bit more comfortably.
Well, that's almost the, I don't want to say that's the problem, but that's you pass them in the store and they're a couple bucks a piece, like, oh, no big deal, I'll grab a few, and you don't feel bad at the time. You spent $6 or whatever, until you look back and realize, oh my God, I spent $300 to get all those stupid things. But
if you want to get
they do it in bite-sized chunks.
You want to get the Chase Loyal Subjects figure, then you're probably paying thousands to get what you need. I'm not bashing on those guys, because again, I really like those figures. I got the first 2 waves of them, but I don't know. There's just it's that painful thing of going, wow, that is a high price point. You're not surprised when something necessarily doesn't take off as well as you want it to.
Right.
But in any case, I mean, are you confident that WizKids could do something really fun with this? You said you've had HeroClix and stuff in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a potential. I mean, that's kind of WizKids' their thing is kind of the HeroClix style, and I think HeroClix was a little rough when it first started from a sculpting perspective, but I think it's gotten a lot better because, I mean, they've had a lot of experience, and I've been kind of looking at their website since this announcement was made, and there is some pretty cool stuff. And I mean, they've got all these different games. They've aligned some releases with some of the actual comic book stories, and it's kind of a neat idea. And yeah, and I think it has the potential to be pretty cool. They've got some, like I'm looking right now at, they have a Marvel HeroClix Earth X series, which, has, the old Captain America with his shield and some dude with a red Punisher skull. I realize I know nothing about Earth X. But yeah, the sculpting looks cool. The poses look cool. It's a pretty neat, little set they've got going on there. So I think that does seem to be up their wheelhouse, and I think it would serve G.I. Joe pretty nicely too to be able to tie into that.
How do you think they'll approach it? Do you think we're gonna? Because I'm talking about this like it's going to happen because it has been mentioned almost as an absolute that these three properties, Transformers, My Little Pony, and G.I. Joe, are getting this miniature treatment. So it's almost like, I can be confident in saying that, and this is from WizKids Direct as well, so sure. We can be pretty confident with this. Now, how do you think they're going to approach it? Do you think we're going to be seeing an Original 13 lineup, or do you think we're going to be seeing vehicles? I mean, what would you think they're going to come at? What angle do you think they're going to come at this with?
Well, I hate to be pessimistic, but I suspect it's going to be the same. It's going to start off the same way, where it's the Snake Eyes and the Storm Shadow and the Duke and the Destro and the Cobra Commander and the Baroness and
Scarlet.
And Scarlet. Probably be the very familiar cast of characters to start with. But I think there is certainly a chance that if...
And then we'll get the fringe characters, Roadblock, Rock and Roll, Gung Ho.
Yeah, Gung Ho, yeah,
the
exactly.
Dreadnoks, and you're like, oh, okay, so everyone we always get, sorry.
No, it's fine. But yeah, you would hope that if things take off, then they could, like I said, they could tie it to some comic book series. Like they could do like a Original 13 series where they do the guys in the original uniforms, which would be pretty cool. They could do a Birth of Serpentor series maybe where they do Serpentor and then they do Dr. Mindbender and do Destro in some different pose or something like that.
That'd
there's so many different ways they could handle it that if it takes off, it could be really, really awesome. I mean, of course, that's a big if. Now, maybe, if it's a lower price point and more accessible, then, people can go into Newberry Comics or whatever and pick them up or Hot Topic or wherever people go to buy these things, and just have them available at people's fingertips. I think that could make a huge difference. I mean, I think that's potentially pretty, could be pretty cool. I mean, because G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe is, we always like to say, it's not nearly as relevant as it used to be. And it isn't, of course. But I do think that if it were accessible and if it were more affordable, and these little minifigures, I think, are more digestible than to pop culture aficionados may walk by. I mean, somebody who's really into pop culture and walks by, a $15 G.I. Joe Retaliation Duke action figure with 50 guns and all this stuff may not say, oh, I'm just going to pick that up. That reminds me of my childhood. But if he walks by a little miniature figure that's a few bucks that looks like the Sunbow Duke and that's in a cool pose and feels more kind of collectible rather than toy, they may be inclined to pick that up. I think that could be a good place for them to kind of get back into it.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. And also I think this is one of those ideal situations that Toys R Us would have been great in, but I remember they had a huge wall of HeroClix stuff when even when they shut down, I think, in the one near us. So I mean, it would have been a perfect scenario for G.I. Joe to operate on a shelf again. But
sure,
I imagine we'll probably see this stuff Target and Walmart at some point. But if it's big enough on a big enough kind of stage, if not, then like you say, I think you'll probably have to search a bit harder for them at retail. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that's been a problem for everything recently. It's not just
exactly
G.I. Joe, which it does hamper a little bit. We're already at a disadvantage, I think. But in any case, excited. I'm looking forward to seeing what WizKids do with this. And thanks for jumping on and chatting with me, Justin.
Sure, not a problem.
Awesome. That's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host Justin Bell. See you next time, and as always, whiz on full force. I'm definitely gonna have to beep that. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of these platforms with feedback, questions or to say, who do you think you are? A serious operation now? No, not even close. Look out for more of these news bursts that we are posting on the Facebook page from now on. Full Force.